My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, but also getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. You can find the link to our playlist in the show notes. Welcome to episode 60. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is Telenova. The supergroup from Melbourne, Victoria have just released their debut EP, entitled Tranquilize. In today's episode, we're talking with Angeline Armstrong about how the band formed, what each member brings to the table, and the genius of early Coldplay. Here we go. Our guest today is one-third of a new indie supergroup from Melbourne, Australia. After working together at a songwriting camp and forming the band, they've just released their brilliant EP, Tranquilize, as of last week. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours from Telenova, Angeline Armstrong. Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
That's good. That's very good to hear. Now, congratulations are in order as the brand new EP, Tranquilize, is out in the world and available for people to access. What's it like finally being out there?
Look, it's great. I think a lot of musicians probably experience this where you write the song in its demo form and on pen and paper, and then you finally record it, and things can just slow it down in terms of the release timeline. So, yeah, we wrote these songs quite a while ago now, and it's nice that the Telenova that's existed in our little circle can finally exist out in the world as well.
Of course, it is very exciting. You guys, yourself and the other two guys, released a few songs in the lead up to the EP, but
Yes.
This is the first collection of songs that the band has put out.
That's right, yeah.
Was the idea to put out an EP from the get-go, or was it kind of an idea that came as you had written more songs and kind of organically happened?
Look, the way the whole band started was just us writing songs together. Like even before we said, hey, we're a band, we were just writing songs because we enjoyed it and we liked the songs we were writing and we weren't exactly sure what was going to happen with them. So I think there just seemed, we've written heaps, we've written more than this EP, so there's definitely a lot of music being recorded and in the works to be put out in the world. And there just seemed to be pretty natural delineations between sort of sonic quality and the sort of period of time where we wrote songs where they seemed to fit within a particular body of work. So, yeah, we didn't necessarily sit down and go, hey, let's write an EP. But, yeah, as we wrote together, we sort of quickly realised that the music we were writing had a pretty strong character and sound of its own. So, yeah, those songs made sense together on an EP of 5.
Of course. The origin story of the band is, I find really fascinating because I feel that a lot of bands are started through, people. One is people having a few drinks and being like, we should start a band, and that's always how it kind of kicks off. And there's a few other bits and stories and not cliches, but formulas that have worked. You guys were slightly different, and please correct me if I've got any of this story wrong, is that at a writing camp you were kind of put together by Chris Walla originally from Death Cab for Cutie, and then that was kind of where it began, or that was the jumping off point. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, I'd say we could definitely credit Chris with the catalyst of us all meeting. The way these songwriting camps work is basically out of a pool of Australian artists and also some international artists. Chris had selected 20. And then in that week, to be honest, I think it was, I don't know how on purpose the rooms were, but you basically get thrown in a room with 3 random people every day and you've got to write a song. So across the 5 days, I wrote 5 songs with 5 different sets of people. But yeah, the Telenova gang, or well, Josh and Ed and myself, as we were then known, yeah, that was just one of my favourite days, and we really loved the song that we wrote. And we were all doing our own different music projects at the time, but we just kept meeting up because it was an enjoyable sort of creative hangout. And yeah, and shortly after it was like, well, let's get a beer and let's be friends and let's be a band. So it's kind of this weird mix of, yeah, it did actually come together pretty organically, but at the same time, I don't think any of our friendship circles or anything like that would have ever overlapped unless we'd been thrown together at this camp.
Do you think that even in those first few days of the days at the camp, do you think it was like a calculated move by Chris, or do you think that it was...
Someone get him on the line. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know, though, that because Josh has been to several of these writing camps, and I've certainly been put together in rooms where you're writing with people you've never met. And there was definitely a very strong, the sort of 20 artists and producers that were selected for this particular songwriting camp. It was obvious that Chris had selected people that all had something quite different and unique to offer. No one was sort of just writing things because it sounded like what's trendy or, what are the Ableton packs that people are using at the time, or everyone sort of had their own character. So I think he was pretty intentional about pulling together artists.
I find I'm very curious how his mind must work, because it must be a very difficult thing to kind of put people together to make them work. I imagine that while Telenova is a great success story from their camp, there might be another 3 people that no longer speak to each other, or who knows.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, the point of those camps is it's not even necessarily to form a band. It's just kind of like, let's throw different creatives in a room and maybe it'll push them to create music, or that they might pitch to another artist, or they might release for their own project. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. There's not really a clear output from these camps. They just throw people together and see if something happens.
See what works, yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely understand that. It is interesting that the dynamics of the 3 of you as well, because I think, again, as you said, kind of that wouldn't have happened with like the overlay or the kind of groups that you do, that you guys are in initially, but there is yourself, who's a little bit of a jack of all trades, who's a musician. You're also a director. Josh is from Miami Horror, and
yes.
Ed's from Slum Sociable. And so it is like, do you find that the 3 of you having creative backgrounds but nothing to do with each other beforehand, that when in Telenova you're able to bring these different elements to the party to kind of complement each other well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of our strengths in the way that the sort of creative chemistry works, is that none of us are really stepping on each other's toes in terms of what we bring. So sort of from my cinema background and from my songwriting background, there's a pretty heavy focus on storytelling and the sort of mood and feel and sort of visual imagery side of creating music and the body of work as a whole. And Josh is just this incredible musician who plays every instrument, has played to crowds of, thousands and thousands and thousands. My dad told me at dinner the other night, he's like, I was watching like Miami Horror tour videos from like 10 years ago. He's played to some big crowds. I'm like, yeah, Dad, is a bit of a big deal. He's our sort of chordsmith. And Ed, I mean, I was a fan of Slum Sociable from when I first heard their music. And he's got some really unique production flair that, he's got a really unique stamp that I feel like you can hear on everything that he's produced. And he sort of makes our music cool.
It very much sounds like, not that everyone has their own little designated spot, but as you said, it sounds like everyone definitely has their own thing that they bring to the table, and that it does work quite well.
Yeah, and I think it enables us to sort of learn from each other as well, which is nice.
Of course, I can definitely imagine that that all three are picking up, bits and pieces that might not have been used or thought of before. For you, being a film director and a musician, I'm very curious, just because it is, you sometimes hear of like actor musicians or musicians who take on like another, but directing is quite a different, to my understanding, is quite a different beast. I guess firstly, what of the two loves kind of came first for you, and then how did you find your way into the other one?
Honestly, I can't. As a kid, I was running around the house making up songs. Mum would be like, you'd point at the washing and see a bug on the wall, and then you'd make it a song. And I was always, I guess, a performer and a storyteller of some sort. I used to put on little plays in the lounge room for my grandparents and all that sort of thing, and kind of direct the scenes and everything. I've never, I couldn't really pinpoint one that came first, and it's been an ongoing throughout high school when I actually started, hands-on, being able to actually direct things and not just imagine it in my head. And then at university and after that, I was always in a constant struggle between like, everyone always tells you got to focus on one thing, and if you don't, you'll just end up being average at everything. And I really flip-flopped, and there'd be a few years where I'd be focusing on music, and then I'd go, no, I don't think this is going to work. Can't make a living off this. I'm going to go to directing. I guess I sort of found that the more I tried to fight and pick between them, the more they sort of informed one another, and I realized that the skills and the kind of creative mindset and approach were transferable, and that I love doing both, and I could do both. So, yeah. It is, you're right though, directing is a completely different beast, and I guess I must have just been pretty antisocial for several years of my life and a bit of a nerd to sharpen my skills in both.
Because did you direct the Telenova music video, is that correct?
I did, yeah.
How do you find being part of the project itself? And so it's the band, but then you're also having that other part of it where you're not, I don't want to say like in charge, but like in the shoot, you're the boss.
If the boys are on this podcast, they'd say I was in charge. In some elements. But yeah, I love it. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to direct the visual context, not just the videos, but kind of the branding and the photos and the artwork and how all that ties together. It's like finally I don't need to struggle between the two. With Telenova, I can do music and I can direct, and I can have that sort of director's vision over the project in lots of nuanced ways. So, yeah, I just feel very lucky.
It is very cool. Some of the artwork that has come out so far, I think it is on the band's Instagram for anyone who's listening to this, where you've kind of utilised, I think it might be similar to like very old school movie posters from overseas, and kind of repurpose them for band promo, which they do look very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got a few giant ones of those floating around that we just in our manager's office and in our homes. But yeah, we kind of like exploring the wider world of the music and sort of creating a bit more of a universe around it.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Yeah, of course. With last year, so these writing camps that we were speaking about before were the start of 2020.
Yes.
Was there like an initial plan for the band when you finally did sit down and have that beer and discuss the plan? Was there going to be a release or like a tour last year with COVID, or did you find that COVID allowed for you guys to kind of almost I don't like the word, but like incubate the plans a little bit longer and let them grow and flesh? Yeah.
To be honest, so I actually can't remember whether writing camp was at the end of 2019 or 2020. I think it might have been in 2019. So we officially formed as a band a few months after that. So 2020 was supposed to be the year we'd brought on, we'd been approached by Calibre Management, who manage us now, and they'd sort of said, hey, let's do a 6-month trial period. And we'd loved them, so we're still with them. But we talked about, doing shows. We talked about putting the song out. We talked about making the music video. And so it was basically everything that happened in 2021 was supposed to happen in 2020. That was kind of the rollout strategy. But yeah, in some ways I'm grateful for it. I mean, we kind of keep joking that we've been through like 2 sonic musical evolutions already because we've had time to write so much music in 1 year. But I think it's always nice to be ahead of yourselves, and it does mean that, yeah, if touring does pick up a bit, we've kind of got quite a backlog of songs that we're proud of, that we're ready to take into the studio and record as for the album. So yeah.
Of course. I know that you guys had played some shows. I think a few months ago there was 2 shows in Sydney and in Melbourne. What was it like being able to bring the project to a stage and show people?
Yeah, I mean, incredible. I think when I first met the boys, early on we would have sort of said, oh, like, what are you guys doing with your music at the moment? Sort of, what are you wanting to get out of music? Are you still wanting to do music? You know, why are we meeting up? And I expressed at one point, you know, I just missed playing with a band, and I'd be pretty happy to just have some new friends who I respected musically and I enjoyed hanging out with, that we could just play a couple of live shows every now and again to our friends, I think I said. But I'm pleased to say that as my little brother tells me, hey, when I look around at your gigs now, it's mostly not friends there anymore, is it? So yeah, that kind of answers your question. I feel really lucky, and it's awesome to look out and not recognize the faces in a crowd and realize that they've come to see you play, especially going to Sydney. I'd never, ever played a show in Sydney before. And, you know, I think we were at 25 tickets at one point. We thought, okay, cool, that's a modest amount. You know, we thought weren't really sure how our first show was going to go. But by the time it actually rolled up to the Friday night or Thursday night or whatever it was completely sold out. And so walking on the stage and seeing like a full audience of just over 100, I think that was a very cool feeling for a first show in Sydney. For me, the boys have played in Sydney. But so just looking forward to adding more and more cities and more venues.
I was going to say that next month you are going out on tour again in support of the EP, and you're hitting up, I think, Brisbane and Adelaide as well this time. What can people expect from those shows?
Yeah, well, kind of with the band, like we're growing the live element kind of organically as the music grows as well. There's a lot more energy. I feel like there's a much bigger energy to the songs that comes out of hearing them live. And we've started collaborating with a friend of ours, Reese Newling, and he does really interesting visual projections and 3D mapping, and he's very creative in that. So, yeah, we've been collaborating on how to sort of bring those cinematic inspirations into more of an abstract scenic experience for the audience to accompany the music in a pretty tailored way. So, yeah, that's fun. That's what to expect.
Well, I was going to ask because, yeah, from a directing background, I can imagine that not only, as we spoke about, like the posters or promo, whatever it may be, but even from a live aspect, a live show is quite a visual medium for the band. And yeah, do you ever find yourself kind of bringing in elements, or even in rehearsals, taking a step back and looking at it from a different perspective and being like, we could do this, or have it look like this, or putting the director's cap on as well as the...
Yeah, totally. I guess I was always directing for screen, not so much for stage. And to be honest, in live performance, I've had a preference for sort of letting the band stand out that I'm seeing and experience that kind of connection. Sometimes I find like the big LED screens at the back with heaps of, information and lights flashing, I find it kind of detracts from like the reality of what I'm experiencing. So yeah, I think for me it's about finding that balance of how to do things tastefully and in an interesting way to sort of create an ambience without taking from just the rawness of there are people on a stage playing music and I'm a part of that, and that's actually enough, how to amplify that experience. Yeah.
Of course. It is very exciting, and I know I've already spoken to some people who are excited to come see you play.
That's great.
Here in Adelaide. Angeline, would you be happy to talk about the playlist that you sent through to us?
Yes.
Firstly, so we've had quite a number of episodes in the podcast, and we do try not to, like play favourites or like showcase one place more than the other. This is out of, I think this will be, when it does air, this is episode maybe 58 or so, and this is the one that's closest to my record collection.
Oh, yeah, I actually can see the national vinyl cover behind you there.
I might have moved some things around for your interview today. Yes. I'm curious, just to begin with, I know you said before, like walking around the house when you were young and singing, your music collection or your music taste, if you will, was that something that you got from your parents? Were they musical, or have they passed on any gems to you?
Yeah, I think... a lot of the ones I've put in this playlist were from friends in high school, because I think that was my most sort of formative. Dad still likes to turn YouTube on the TV and be like, oh, watch this, like top 10 hits from 1973. These were all my favorites or something. But yeah, Dad was a big disco man. He was a big Bee Gees fan, Fleetwood Mac, Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, U2. So I grew up, kind of my primary school years and early high school years was like dad music. And Mum, Dad's not a musician. Mum can play music, but she never sort of had the chance to fully explore it. She became a nurse to sort of help financially support her family back home in the Philippines. But yeah, from her there was sort of like, I discovered this Filipino folk music called Kunjaman music, which I listen to occasionally, even though I don't understand all the words. And she used to play some pretty strange stuff. I don't know where she got them from, but she used to play us a lot of Deep Forest as a kid, which I don't know if you're familiar with Deep Forest, but it's like French electronic ambient, and they sampled, I think it was like African tribal like songs and chorus, and then... Anyway, so I actually didn't even put Deep Forest on my playlist, so I better add that in after this podcast. But I got that from my parents. And then high school, it was like burnt CDs, mixtapes, USBs with just like, here's the music you need to listen to from, the cool kids at school that had downloaded it off LimeWire. And so that's where the majority of this playlist, I'm showing my age here as well, that's where the majority of that playlist comes from. With those USBs in high school.
That was my follow-up was because I could be very wrong, but I was going to guess that you were a child maybe, or like in high school in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, because like it just reads like The Killers, The Strokes, The Shins, Vampire Weekend, Yeahs. Yeah. Firstly, I guess how many of these songs have formative memories for you in terms of high school and relating it back to that?
Yeah. All of them. I feel like most of them I can scroll through and like a memory of listening to that song will immediately kind of come to mind. Like the Born to Die album by Lana Del Rey just like blew my mind when it first came out, and I listened to it so loud through these crappy like iPhone speakers, earphones that were like crackling because I'd overused them too much. And I can remember like walking from the train station to home just loving this world that she was in that, you know, 13, 14-year-old me was completely removed from. And yeah, I mean, bands like Fleet Foxes, and like Sigur Rós, when I first heard that kind of music, I just couldn't believe that music existed like that seemed to come from another time and another place and another world. It seemed to come from, you know, books that I'd read or something. It didn't seem like it came from the radio. I think all of the music on this playlist, for me, in some way, it belongs to a universe of its own, and that's what I've always loved about artists, that it goes even beyond the music to creating this other world that you can escape into every time you listen.
Definitely, I can definitely agree with that, and with the comment about Sigur Rós and Fleet Foxes. It is like almost otherworldly, or yeah. I'm curious at any point, because Telenova, there are like bits of the genre of the band, like there are elements of indie, but could we have at any point, maybe in a different timeline, see you like fronting a Strokes-esque, Killers-esque like indie rock kind of power pop almost, if you will, like band?
Yeah, for sure. I can see myself doing that. It's the fascinating thing about how people hear and experience music as well, because, you know, I mean, maybe to me, Telenova does feel like it would exist alongside Vampire Weekend and alongside Radiohead and alongside The Killers. But to my bandmates, I actually don't know where they, in the music industry, you know, you sort of talk about like positioning and aligning, and it's like this act sounds like these bands. And I just think that I've had multiple people, like audience and friends, and I mean, my dad's like, it reminds me of the music when I was growing up. And we've had a lot of like middle-aged / retired people like commenting on our YouTube. And then we've like, my brother's still in high school, and so he's got high school friends just like, it sounds like the stuff on Triple J, you know. So I don't know, everyone sort of hears and receives it differently. But yeah, for sure, I'd front any of those bands in my playlist.
It's very cool that the fact that it can kind of be like not representative of a time, in the fact that your brother and his friends can enjoy it, that your dad and his friends can enjoy it, and that it still exists. Yeah, it's very cool. One thing I wanted to ask about, Jeff Buckley, Love You Should Have Come Over. Absolutely gorgeous song. What does this song mean to you, or does it have like a certain memory that you're comfortable to talk about, obviously?
Sure, it's about a lover I had when I was 13. No, it's just, it probably just defines the time in my life where I was listening to this sort of like, oh, I'm so mature, and maybe I'll have a glass of red wine while I listen to this sort of heartbreaking music, and I'll cry into my pillow. And it's like my teen angst when I was learning electric guitar on my own in my room and didn't hang out with anybody like that. That's where this music comes from. Probably like the first Radiohead song I'd ever heard was Fake Plastic Trees, and it was kind of like crying to that song and crying to a bunch of other songs. So that's the honest answer of where Jeff Buckley fits into my listening.
I feel like it is almost like a rite of passage, Jeff Buckley and Radiohead, you almost get too ahead of yourself in terms of like, oh yeah, I am really mature, this is incredible. And then later on you're like, the music is still incredible, but I maybe wasn't as mature as I thought. But.
That's right. I mean, I was like in love with Jeff Buckley, and all I had to go off was like his face on the front cover of that album and the songs that I listened to. Didn't know anything about him. But yeah, I still love that song, and I still play that song a lot. I think that album is, that's a really fine piece of work. The emotion in that is incredible.
It is, it is an incredible album. The other track I wanted to quickly talk about was Green Eyes by Coldplay from Rush of Blood to the Head, because I feel like these days Coldplay gets like a little bit of a bad rap, or like you know. What was it about this song that made you put it on the playlist?
Yeah, I mean, I loved that whole era of Coldplay. Even Fix You, which was divisive, like parachutes, and yeah, just all of that their earlier work. And Green Eyes, yeah, I think a lot of these songs made me feel something that felt kind of familiar, but also felt like, yeah, perhaps it was like a time that I was coming into, or it was a feeling I wanted to, you know. Like some of those Jeff Buckley songs, they made me feel things, but I was also very aware that I hadn't really experienced any of the things that these songs were about, but that I sort of craved to and I wanted to. And I think Green Eyes had that same sort of like, yeah, there was like a nostalgia as if I was much older and I was looking back on something. That's what those songs feel like to me. I covered Green Eyes with my first band, who was me and two of my best friends, 3 girls, and we strum on our little acoustic guitars pretty poorly and sing three-part harmonies, and we were the hit of the school. And we played that song at my friend's mum's wedding as well. And she's since passed away, so that song is, it's pretty important and integral to that. Yeah, experiencing a lot of things as a teenager in pretty big ways.
Yeah, definitely. It is a gorgeous song, and it sounds like there's some very nice memories attached to it for you.
Yeah.
Angeline, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. I do appreciate it, and congratulations again on the EP, which is out now.
Thank you so much. You're so very welcome.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to Angeline for her time. Tranquilize is out now, and we've left links in the show notes for you to stream the EP and buy tickets to their upcoming shows. We also want to give a huge shout out to Charlie at Remote Control Records for helping out with today's interview. You can find a link to our Spotify playlist in the show notes, where you'll be able to listen to all of Angeline's picks. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Thursday and Friday morning, with guest playlists streaming on Spotify at the same time. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
Never sleep hot again with Bowl and Branch's best-selling naturally cooling sheets. They feel super crisp and cool to the touch and are expertly designed for enhanced breathability so you don't overheat at night. Start getting your best night's sleep this summer with cooling sheets made with the highest quality materials. Try Bowl and Branch with a 30-night worry-free guarantee. Plus, get 15% off and free shipping on your first set of sheets at bowlandbranch.com with code BUTTERY. Exclusions apply. See site for details.